I started painting, or painting and drawing really, my freshman year of high school. So I want to say that was about 7 years ago, 6 or 7 at this point. And I started drawing, watching documentaries, and that's how it kind of all started, the art. But it really started, I want to say it was 2022, was when the potted plant first became my signature. And that actually came from an idea from Malaysia. I go to Malaysia every 7 years-ish, 6, 7, to go visit my family up there. And there's an artist street artist that I started seeing out there. His name is Chigo, I think Chigo the Stray. And he just paints like a dog. It's like a graffiti style dog.
Yeah.
But it's kind of everywhere. And I started seeing it on like highway underpass sort of walls, the exit ramp walls, if you will. And I thought that was just a really interesting place to go. It made me want to, because of course I was doing some street art, mostly in like arroyos and tunnels and stuff like that. But that made me really want to do something different, do more of like the, I guess, street artist circus that you would see today. But that came, what was I going to do? And the potted plant was already my signature, and I wanted to do something just to start doing my thing out there on the streets. And from that came the idea to do plants, just because it boosts our mental health, it helps our mood. That's just like a psychology fact that I've come to know, right?
Yeah.
So with that, and it being Albuquerque, it's like a desert. We do a good job landscaping and stuff, but I do think it could use more green and just some different plants, tropical ones that people can enjoy. So that's why I started putting them out there.
Well, and we've talked about our favorite prickly pear there. Do you try to use plants of the Southwest, or do you sneak in some tropical plants in some of your art?
Oh, both. Yeah, I think the tropical plants actually came first. Hence the Malaysia, and actually some sort of surreal plants. I think the first plant I did was like these 2 cell phones growing out of a plant, and that was alluding to me and my girlfriend's sort of long distance 2-week, it wasn't a long distance relationship, but during those 2 weeks when I was in Malaysia, it was like a long distance communication we had to have. So that was the first one. So I like to play around with like not just real plants, tropical plants, and yes, local plants, but also plants that I just make up in my head, because that's sometimes the easiest and most fun thing for me. But the first things were, pretty, I don't know if you want to call them safe, but they were in tunnels for the most part. There's a tunnel right across from my middle school. So I knew about it for a while. Me and my friend had gone exploring in there quite a bit. But I don't know when I first had like the notion, maybe it was just seeing some spray paint at Lowe's or something, or I actually think it might have been some extra spray paint from a different project. But I had this spray paint, and it was just the cheap stuff from Lowe's or something. So I took it and I went into that tunnel, and I'm pretty, the first times were alone. So, I was just alone in that tunnel. But it's a certain vibe, it's pretty interesting. I really like it in the tunnels. Funny enough, it's like kind of eerie and scary, but it's also, if you go alone, it's very peaceful and just quiet. You can hear the echo of everything going around you. And so I sort of fell in love with it. That's when I still did a little bit underground here and there, but I really realized that above ground was it for me, and I didn't want to go hide anymore in a sense. I didn't want to go kind of, which again, I love the tunnels. It's a certain atmosphere that I came to love, but I also came to love seeing my art in a different light, getting a picture of it, and just having it more publicly accessible, seen by more, I don't want to say more, but different eyes, but for the most part, after that, and for years, I promised myself, I'm not going back underground, you know what I mean? That's just something that I deemed was part of my art practice now. I want it to be in the daylight. I want people to see it. I'm not, again, I don't want to hide anymore. So, so that's when I came above ground and I started doing different things. It's all art, it was never graffiti or the lettering that people see. That's also part of my practice, is trying to separate the art from vandalism, and then graffiti kind of falls in an interesting place. But so the thing was the underpass wall on I-25 in Lead, and that's where like this big sort of, street art mural was developing that I was doing, so it wasn't, exactly with permission at first. Yeah, Lead and Coal is where I started putting a good amount of my street art potted plants, and that one highway wall was, again, sort of inspired by Chigo, that Malaysian artist, as like a perfect place to go. It's not exactly owned by a corporation or something like that. It's not as risky in that sense, and it's not taken up by other graffiti artists or something like that, because there's really not enough a shortage of canvas out there, right? So, and that's something that a lot of graffiti artists, I don't think, are willing to go do something on a highway. But with my things being the potted plants, I started doing it, and a lot of police officers just started passing me by, and I think probably because they saw it was just art and it's not anything that's connected to a gang or something like that. So it generally was just, I'd get some flashes a couple times to just leave. But that became my safe spot. So it became like a really big wall, and then it made the news where, so the story there goes that the media, KOB, was sort of pressuring the art department at first, saying like, hey, is this legal? What's going on with this wall? And the art department, thankfully, thanks to them, because they just said, we don't know, man, it's not our wall. They said, so it was the DOT's wall. And so that's when the KOB started pressing the DOT to like, hey, like, is this legal? Make a statement, So they did. They made a statement on the news saying, like, this isn't technically legal. We're going to take it down in 2 weeks, which to me was surprising at the time. I didn't know that story. So I was like, why are they saying that they're going to take it down in 2 weeks? It just gives me time to add some more stuff. So I added this. Was that when the polar bear went up? I think so.
I think so, yeah. The polar bear and
Yeah, so, or the polar bear was already there. But it was the DOT guy.
Worker,
and it was the cover-up crew with the paint roller. So he was hugging the polar bear, sort of to like start that, positive relationship with them. Just to say, hey, it could be a good thing. And then also I added this huge message that said, welcome art in Albuquerque. And so that just made, news. It got the word out there a little bit more. And again, the community was super supportive of all the stuff that I was doing. They wanted to see the plants survive, because it wasn't a very deep message, but it's to help mental health. It was just overwhelmingly a positive project. So the community wanted it to stay. And thankfully it did.